gentlemen, this is Fortis 85, and this is the first ever podcast edition of After the Fact.
Yep.
After the Fact will be streaming a number of my favourite movies to begin with, and then obviously over the period of time, if we like it, we'll be getting some different movies in from different people. We'll be discussing it, dissecting it, putting it back together, and just overall having a chat about a good movie. I'll have my very good friend Mozsta 69, who is going to be my first special guest star on the podcast. Mozsta, do you want to give yourself a bit of an introduction?
Hey guys, thanks Fortis. Mozsta 69. Well, I'm just a regular dude that works in a regular company. Gaming is my main passion. Here to chew the fat today with Fortis 85, who I consider in my life to be my movie guru, to chew the fat on Star Citizen. So yep, that's me. I'm 43 years old. I live in Sydney.
So you're going to chew the fat on Star Citizen?
Oh, not Star Citizen, sorry. I've already got my gaming hat on. Sorry, guys.
Yes.
Starship Troopers. Sorry.
We can do an episode on Star Citizen.
So what we're aiming, guys, is Fortis is going to give us it's like a book club almost, where we go and watch a movie together. Movie that Fortis picks out from the archives, and he gives me some questions to go and stew on and do some homework on. So I'm all good to go, Fortis, hopefully.
Good stuff. And I asked that Mozsta 69 will actually give it 24 hours before he gives his opinion, because we know how much you love giving, a difference of opinion the very after the fact.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Knee-jerk reactions.
I love it. So guys, we're talking about Starship Troopers. Now, Starship Troopers is a remake of a book that was made in the mid-90s, and essentially they've basically taken the premise and taken it one step further into the future and made it into a live-action thriller, sci-fi, and essentially we've got your typical aliens versus humans and what goes from there. So yeah, off we go. Anything to add before we kick off the questioning?
Well, I did some more homework, and correct me if I'm wrong, the guy that wrote this book, Fortis, did you say the book came out in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the 90s, the 1900s.
1900s, yes.
Sorry, the 20th century.
20th century, yeah. So I was reading that the conditions, I like to understand the conditions that the author is in when he writes books. Like J.R. Tolkien was in the trenches of World War I when he was writing his book and stuff like that. So,
and George Orwell was an activist when he did Animal Farm in 1984.
Yeah. And I learned that this author was writing this book under the kind of Cold War conditions, when Russia and America were kind of having a war, with a lot of propaganda coming from both sides, a lot of questions in regards to patriotism and being against the commie. And I think interestingly, one of the facts was that the Americans stopped nuclear testing or something at that time, when the author got inspired to write this book. So anyway, interesting.
That is kind of interesting as well. And it also probably, at this stage as well, when he wrote the book, there's a lot of, at that stage, there was not so much graphic novels, but comic books were being done. So this was probably a little bit out there. And this is probably a genre where it didn't have a huge following, but it still obviously took off and has become a cult classic, in a book terms, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right one, but
yeah.
Yeah. So
the author is Robert A. Heinlein of the original Starship Troopers, just for the record.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So Starship Troopers, a brief summary of the plot. In the 23rd century, while colonizing a new planet, the humans have encountered a hostile technological insectoid species called arachnids, or, as Johnny Rico, the main character, likes to call it, the bugs. So the Earth itself seems to be, and it doesn't really go into a lot of explanation in the movie, but from my thoughts on it, the Earth seems to be all like working together at this stage, and whether it's America, whether it's overseas, instead of having all these individual nations, they have what's called the Federation. And the actual start of the movie takes, I suppose, effect in Buenos Aires, which is, I suppose, not within America, but yeah. So it's kind of interesting that they've kind of done this take on it, and I'm not sure what was the thought process behind that, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
It was kind of like one new world order, is how I
Yeah,
took it. Yeah,
yeah, and
one power controlling everything. So whether that's people actually working together or one force that's overcome all the other forces on planet Earth and taken over,
well,
I
the
don't
fact
really
that it
know.
was the fact that it was military as well kind of makes me feel like they had put martial law in and it had been in there for a little while, because the movie's also set in the 23rd century, so obviously we're a couple of centuries ahead
Hmm.
to what we are now, and it'll be kind of interesting to see with the way the world is, as if that's the way, you know, war already happened and then it was kind of everyone got over that and were united. It's a little
Yeah.
bit crazy. But I just kind of got the feeling that it was martial law put in place at one stage, and then everyone's kind of just become part of it, and then you can see that as part of the patriotism and, you know, become a citizen, you know, to do whatever it was. And yeah.
Yeah.
So look, first impressions, premise of the movie itself, and sci-fi related. I suppose the sci-fi genre is probably quite often in movies. They're either really big blockbusters or flops. I think this movie became a cult classic, although not doing too well at the box office, which is typical for this type of cult movie that you would see. But thoughts?
Well, I think it has all the sci-fi makings. There's alien invasions, there's massive battles, spaceships, there's even a hero with a square jaw. So
The
yeah,
all American star.
yeah, the quarterback or whatever, which is awesome. And one of our friends, Fortis, really summed it up well for me. Is that the writer said to me, man, that it's kind of like a tribute to a B movie without really being a B movie. If you look at it, all the details and stuff, so yeah, I think it has all the elements of a good classic sci-fi film. I think it's interesting how the bugs, typically in sci-fi movies, you meet another kind of alien race that's, you know, technologically like really advanced.
Mm.
But I found it interesting in this how the bugs use their own biology against.
And shooting their spore into space, or spooge.
Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't have laser guns or missiles or anything. They were actually evolved their own biology as a form of weaponry to expand their footprint in the universe. I found that quite interesting as well.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the it definitely hits all the marks of a great sci-fi movie. So you've got, you know, obviously a big budget for live action, and then obviously making the arachnids look pretty good. I feel that these days, like this movie was made in the 90s, but in these days you're finding that CGI has just taken over everything. It kind of looks almost too cartoonish, where I think with this they've kind of done a bit of CGI but also mixed it where there were props, I'd say. I don't know
Absolutely.
100%.
Yep.
So I feel like that, the way they did that, and then obviously in the 90s taking the view of what the future is in the 23rd century, that for a sci-fi, I think they did that really well. One of my favorite parts is when they show a execution. You know, a man was tried and court-martialed today and will be killed or will be sent to the death sentence all on the same day. All internet, all web.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the would you like to know more, and the way they've kind of tied into what they thought the internet was going to be for that was really cool. So yeah, I thought for me, obviously I love this movie for its, not just for its cheese factor, but for the, I suppose, the way they've done it. They haven't taken themselves too seriously as a sci-fi movie, and they've made I suppose the premise one that pretty much anyone that just wants to sit down and take your mind off the world for a while, have a good time. I think it's probably maybe a little bit gruesome for absolutely everyone, whereas if you compare it to a movie like The Fifth Element, where it has probably not so much gruesomeness, but it's something different. But again, part of the reason why this has become a cult classic, I think, because of so many of its sci-fi features and the premise that it has. So yeah.
Any standout moments, good or bad?
Yeah, for me, the bad. I'll start with the bad. The writing is just way beyond shocking. They had some quality one-liners in there, like one of the Johnny Rico ones, which is one of my favorites, where near the ending of the movie, where he goes to take on the big boss Smartbug, instead of being, some half-decent dialogue, you see this soldier coming in, trying to find what's going on. He's got a nuke in his hand, and he's like, "You're some type of big giant smart bug, aren't you?" And then you're like, "Yeah." And I suppose throughout the movie, it almost entices you to laugh at it. So, from a bad point of view, some of the good point of views, so standout moments, I really liked at the beginning of the movie, the All-American football gridiron type game, and just the way they play that out. Again, they put an element of cheese into it, where he's concentrating on his girlfriend instead of concentrating on the game, and he gets absolutely bamboozled and smashed, but then he goes on and then he does this mad flip thing to go win the game, and everyone runs onto the court and it's like, yeah,
the classic football match.
Yeah.
You see that all the time in the Super Bowl, man. The quarterback's looking at his wife and he's all nervous.
But then you flip to
win.
The training, when they're in their base training camp, and they're playing essentially an awesome game of laser tag, which just looks absolutely cool and a lot of fun. And he's their team is getting done, and him and his mate Dizzy, who we'll touch on in a bit, she's like, flip six 3-hole, and he's like, what? And she's like, flip six 3-hole, and he's like, right. And then she covers him, and he goes and does this pretty much the same move that he would have done in football, and then scores the flag, and they're playing capture the flag, and then he gets given a crew to work with, or team leader or whatever it is. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, man, because gridiron and gunfights, it's the exact same plays.
Yeah. Well, again, they kind of haven't taken themselves too seriously, which is kind of cool. One of my all-time favorite parts is when Radchek comes in. So obviously he's got a teacher at the beginning of the film that's talking about ethics and is it right to go to war, or how it all, what are the ethics behind it. And then he's got one arm missing, and then before the war, he just doesn't have anything. During the war, when they first see him, and they're like, "Whoa, he's the lieutenant who supposedly saves everyone." He's got this robotic arm now, which they all have, which is pretty cool. And then he's just like, "I've got one rule for all you new people: everybody fights, nobody quits. If anyone fights, I'll kill you myself." Just the golden one-liners in this film, it almost makes up for the shitty writing.
The classical Sarge.
Yeah, that's it. And he just plays it so well. And yeah, what about yourself?
The good moments for me, man, I'm a little bit of a, I don't know how to describe myself, but I'm a guy that doesn't like to see a movie where everything runs smoothly for the hero and it's all nice and easy yet action packed and you know, the world never, you know, does anything bad to the hero or nothing that he can't handle. So the absolute violence in this movie, for me, like
Yeah,
like that's one thing that will stand out. The way that some of these characters get taken out is just
yeah. I
very
feel like they
violent
went down
and
a list and just how can we kill all these people in all these different ways? Totally
yeah.
agree.
Yeah, so for a guy like me, I actually enjoy that stuff. Seeing main characters just get obliterated out of the script, right? Because then you don't know who's going to go next, who's going to survive. Whereas when I watch superhero movies, I know no one's going to sort of get killed, and I kind of am not, not that interested in the action scenes. But so the absolute violence is something to marvel at. I also like how, like, if you look at it, like the hero, the main cast, like nothing goes right for them. Like you
Mm.
think that the Johnny Rico is gonna, make the squad and stuff, and yeah, he makes the squad, but then his first training session, one of his squad mates gets absolutely
with,
killed, right?
with the large army men as well
Yeah,
that pop out of the thing.
yeah,
So for all the listeners, they're doing another live fire exercise right after he gets the squad leader, and they're basically like fighting an enemy which basically looks like giant army men popping out of a little turret box.
yeah.
It's quite funny.
And
So
and he manages to lose a squad mate on that, so he gets demoted straight away.
Hmm.
Um,
And then gets 10 lashes to boot.
and then he gets 10
Marshall's law.
lashes, yeah, which is a bit archaic. And
Yeah.
then, like the mission doesn't go smoothly, and they get totally annihilated from that aspect. So yeah, nothing goes right for the main hero, and nothing barely goes right for most of the cast most of the way. And at the end, they are heroes, but they're not the overarching heroes. They're not the ones that actually capture the smart bug and stuff. It's actually a side character that does that. So again, I think that's awesome. It kept me guessing as to what was going to happen in the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
The bad side was the writing was corny as. Also, some of the use of like technology was a bit funny. Like when they did that first invasion on the planet, like this is humanity, like in the year 2300, with huge spaceships that can go to the other side of the universe and stuff. And yet, when they did their invasion, it was like it was just seeing these hundreds of thousands of soldiers with guns just literally just like
Like
just
out like
pouring out aimlessly in every which way, like cowboys and Indians, like a cowboy and Indian movie. That was a bit weird. They were just literally running around like headless chooks on this planet,
And now
man.
that you bring up that point as
Like,
well,
what the
there's
hell's going on?
also
Where's the tanks? Where's
and
the
also
mechs? Where's
the recon mission as well, which like you would think that when they're going to invade a planet, like you see all the bugs are shooting their spore or spooge or whatever you want to call it into the air. They're like, don't worry, it's just random light. So they're like, that's not going to do it. And then all of a sudden, they're like, they start getting just shot to pieces in the air, and obviously they're like, someone made a mistake. Someone made a big goddamn mistake. It's like, yeah, you did.
There wasn't random lights. It was anti-aircraft shooting.
So you would think that they would have got that covered first, but
yeah. So that's all a bit weird because you think this high-tech sort of empire, and yet their battle tactics was just insane. It was. So yeah, there were the sort of. For me, like I don't take the film seriously, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I don't think you're meant to.
Yeah, and you're not meant to. So there were the bits that could have done a little bit better and still maintain the cheesiness, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. So, Jaco, the wrong versus right, humans versus arachnids. So basically, for the listeners, what we've got is, it seems as though for no reason, a bug shoots a asteroid out of their asteroid belt and at Earth, which is could be a preemptive attack, could be just because they're the bad guys and they've got to start a premise somehow, not sure, of like a war. But essentially, in the whole movie, the humans obviously go to war with them straight away to try and totally annihilate and genocide and create genocide of the arachnids. So, who do you reckon's right? Are they right? Is the humans right? What do you reckon?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because, I mean, the arachnids shot the first bullet. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, apparently, like
right.
that's what you're led to believe, but you don't know because it seems like that they do mention that they knew of the arachnids, so you don't know humans being the
Yeah.
people that they are might have done something
I think
in the
I
past.
think I think the whole film for me is one big grey area. And even before you meet the arachnids and all that stuff, and you're on Earth, and you know Johnny Rico is going through that propaganda school. What is that military school? Like you're watching all that, thinking something's not right with this society, right? The amount of propaganda and
which goes
confirmation.
back to the Federation comment that I made earlier, where it seems as though Earth has been united somehow, but it's been united under martial law, which, you know, has elements of, you know, 1984 or Big Brother, but it also does speak, I suppose, mountains to how society kind of is at the moment. With, you know, Big Brother is watching, there's everything going on, and then there is, I suppose, especially for the first world countries, there is a definite way that people, well, I suppose the government wants people to act and behave, and to a point with advertising and everything else at the moment. So I feel like they kind of got it that going in a pretty good direction from I think they got that right, if anything, for the type of theme that they were going for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's all one big grey area. Like the Earth's, I kind of get the feeling that if the arachnids didn't fling an asteroid at the Earth, that version of Earth that we saw, if they would have encountered the arachnids first, they would have gone to war. Just from just from that propaganda school sample that I got, you know, choosing are you a civilian or a citizen, are you down for the cause, and all the honor and stuff in going to battle and all that stuff. I think that if we encountered the arachnids, that it would have equally we would have been flinging some sort of nukes at their the home planet. So to answer your question, dude, all grey area. I don't know who's right or wrong.
And I would tend to agree with that. The only thing I will say about your comment about the propaganda side is that you'll notice when they're dissecting one of the cockroach-looking bugs in one of the lessons that they have in the school, where Carmen ends up like, you know, she's like, oh, you got to be nervous still to be a pilot, and then she goes and chucks everywhere after they start dissecting this bug. But the blind professor that's taking him through the the dissection of it, you know, the students are telling her like, oh, you know, humans have done, you know, we've built civilizations, done like wonderful things, and you know, we've managed to do this. And then she's like, yes, but the bugs have been around for hundreds of thousands of years by the looks of it. And then and to your point before, they've managed to colonize other planets by shooting their spore into space. So again, the bugs, while I suppose maybe not smart as far as by human standards, they've managed to get further along the evolutional path than the humans have in a way. So again, when a society reaches a certain size, it does have to expand. And now whether that is, you know, a whole lot of bugs down a tunnel, or, you know, or a whole lot of humans on a planet, one way or the other. And then I suppose you do kind of have that question of only the strong survive, and, you know, survival of the fittest. Where does that come in? So again,
comes in pretty quick.
Well, that's
comes in pretty quick.
And if they think that, you know, there's a inferior on both sides, if they think there is a inferior subset of a race or whatever it is, you're gonna you know, be more inclined to say, yeah, we can take over these guys, you know,
Yeah.
without any issues.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's premeditated or not, but yeah, so agreed, a bit of a grey area, but I mean,
So what are you saying, man? Are you with the humans or with the aliens? I've sort of
uh,
said it's a draw. It's a one-all draw. Well, what are you saying? You're kind of twisting and
no, I'm almost saying I probably, from an arachnid's point of view, I understand. I'm not rooting for them, but I understand why, you know, they're just like, fuck it, we've just got all this crazy amount of like mouths to feed, so to speak, in
yeah,
space that we don't have. So let's colonize other planets, and
yeah,
you know, they might look at the humans as cockroaches. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
just not even worth the while. So they're
yeah,
like, let's just wipe them out.
yeah. So
Type
do
thing.
do you believe in aliens in general?
I do, man. But when I say that, I don't necessarily believe in like, you know, the flying saucers and all of that. Maybe, maybe not, because the way time and space is, like, for us, we've managed to, like, our planet has just had, I suppose, like a perfect set of luck being in the, you know, the area that we are near the sun or the other planets, and I
Hmm.
suppose the right atmosphere to create some type of like our human life. But
Yep.
then you got to think, with the universe being as big as it is and how much we do or do not know about the universe, I cannot believe that there is no form of, whether it be intelligent or other non-intelligent life, or a, how would you say, a like an organism or something that would be out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Absolutely.
to quote the X-Files, the truth is out there. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah. I believe in aliens. I also, like you, man, at the sheer size of our universe, I refuse to believe that there's not a form of plankton or even some crazy civilization out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, getting time and space and doing all of that as well, there might be, they might never, like when you look at light years and all the rest of it, we've only, especially in human, you know, in human view, we've only really started to scratch the surface of all that in the last 50 to maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for ages, they thought the atom was the smallest thing in the world, then they cracked that open and then it was tiny again, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I just, firm believer in aliens, yes.
Yeah. Me
So,
too, man.
as far as the premise goes, again, going back to the future state of things, do you think the world as we see it today, based off like what we see in the movie, do you think that the human race could put aside their differences if we had a greater threat, like the arachnids come and, you know, blow the world up? Do you think we
Oh.
could come together?
Of course, the answer is of course we can, but to add a bit of flavor to this and keep things out of the black and white, um, I think it depends on the type of alien that's invading us. If it's an alien like the arachnids, which seems like some mindless, organized but semi-unintelligent life form that's only purpose is to wipe us out and eat us for food, then I believe that today's planet Earth would be able to put down their weapons and work together. But if the aliens are in any way intelligent and diplomatic in their encounter with us, but yet they still might have the intention of wiping us out, but they won't expose that intention. They'll step to us in a very diplomatic way and maybe
Mm.
promise a faction of humans some power or some knowledge if they sided with them or whatever. Then I actually truly believe that there will be people on this planet with power that would trade away our planets
Our God-given rights.
for for increased power or promise to rule this left side of the hemisphere or top of the hemisphere or whatever. You know what I mean? Like sell out planet Earth if the price is right. So I think it actually depends on the type of alien that steps to us. If they're dumb, we'll all band together, and if they're intelligent and diplomatic, I think we can get easily fooled, and there's enough corrupt people on this planet to help them with that.
So
Yourself?
I've got a bit more of a cynical view. While I
Yeah.
think there would be a small part of humanity that would want to band together, I feel like as a whole, we're just selfish creatures or primates or whatever you want to call us. At the end of the day, we're in it for number one. And I'd like to say for the greater good, and I'd almost feel like it would take something like a wipeout of almost all our population then for us to band together. I feel like if something happened, we would still try and, deal with it in our own way. And I don't think, especially if we have people like our current world leaders, and especially in the first world countries, doing something, I think that the human race would almost destroy itself first before it would have to almost destroy itself first before getting to that point.
Yeah. Wow, it's
So
more negative than my view.
yeah, well, that's it. Like I am a firm believer that there is a lot of good that can be done in this world, and there is a lot of good that is done in this world, but it is far outweighed by the needs of oneself, outweighs the needs of the whole of humanity, where it should be the other way around. But then
Yeah.
again, that's an entirely different question and, thought process and philosophical discussion that we could spend years talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I suppose throughout the whole movie, we kind of got to the end where it came to a point of, I suppose, they catch the bug, a smart bug that they identify, and they do that. So, and the human race, all claps and cheers, and everyone, it's not the war that finishes; it's still an ongoing war that, as you led to believe. What do you reckon? Do you think they did well doing the end of the movie, or do you reckon they could have sized it up a bit better?
No, I enjoyed the ending of the movie. Obviously, so the heroes, as you said, the actual heroes, all they manage to do is some of them, most of them die, but some of them survive, and they just end up rescuing each other. Whereas the main hero became the lieutenant, who was a side character, who ended up finding the so-called smart bug that potentially could control the whole horde of bugs. So I like that. I liked how it wasn't them that was the heroes. It was some other guy that was the hero. And it kind of set itself up nicely for... It could have really set it up really nicely for Starship Troopers 2 and 3. As you stated, that it was a massive celebration, not because the war had ended, but after so much loss and death, they managed to just get a sample of this smart bug.
Small win.
A small win, yeah.
They won the battle, but not the war.
Yeah, and I think that was a good setup. I know Starship Troopers 2 and 3, I haven't seen them, but you guys have said that they're pretty bad. But regardless, the setup from Starship Troopers 1 was a good setup that could have, carried on. But I was pleasantly surprised by the ending.
I agree. The ending kind of took a bit of a weird turn for me as well. So I suppose so for all the listeners as well, if you haven't seen the movie, the main characters, they're basically doing a cleanup of a particular planet. The human race is actually psychic at the moment. So Neil Patrick Harris, basically Doogie Howser, yeah, telepathically tells one of the female lead characters, Carmen, where the bug is, and she also just happens to crash land with one of her, I suppose, one of the supporting other characters, or one of her co-workers in the direct vicinity of it, which was quite hilariously put. And so Johnny Rico, the main character, takes no accountability for his squad, says, "I'm going after her." And Neil Patrick Harris basically gives him the I suppose the coordinates in his head or psychically of where Carmen is, and he goes off to find her. Now they actually encounter the brain bug, as they like to call it, or as Johnny Rico likes to call it, the big but giant smart bug. And essentially, you think it's going to end there, or at least there's going to be the crescendo or the arc of the ending there. But essentially, it just gets damaged a little by Carmen cutting off, I suppose, what it uses to suck humans' brains out. And then it goes off into the background, and they have to get themselves out of there. One of the supporting characters leaves his Hernandez, I think it is, allows himself to be blown up with one of the nukes, not before taking out a couple with his gun first, and allowing all the others to run out of the cave. Then you see, as you said, Mozsta, the Zim, who is at the beginning, a drill sergeant, and he busts himself down to private to actually go and get the bug. So yeah, I thought it was very nicely done. A bit of a twist, as you said, like it didn't go right for the main characters, but it wasn't the mighty starships or it wasn't the mighty fleet. It was a drill instructor named Zim that caught the brain bug. So yeah, I liked the ending, and then obviously just before the credits roll, you've got some more of the propaganda that they splatter throughout the movie, where it's all internet, all video, all everywhere. And they basically go and, we're getting better technology, and, we're signing up new people, and they're getting more people to join the army and join the cause. And yeah, I thought, for what it is, like you said, set it up beautifully for the second and third movie. And I think what they could almost do, and what they should do, they could very easily, if they put the budget into it, make Starship Troopers into an awesome TV series, like like a Netflix original or something. Give it a 6-part series, maybe not like a 24-part series, but do that to really flesh it out, and then do it that way. I think kind of like it would be a modern day equivalent of Band of Brothers, so to speak.
That's a great call, man.
Yeah, I
never thought of that, but that would be something I'd definitely watch, man. A Starship Trooper Netflix series would be brilliant.
100%.
Brilliant.
So if anyone from Netflix is listening, now's your opportunity. I won't take any of the commission.
Trademark it. Trademark.
All right. So I suppose being set in the future, it's 23rd century. Future concepts. What do you reckon? I've kind of already touched on the future gridiron football game thing, or the robotics. So we see a lot of the people in the things have like robotic arms or legs. I thought they kind of did well there. Thoughts?
Well, I think they could have done a bit more. I think robots and like brilliant spaceships, nice spaceships. I won't say brilliant, but good enough spaceships, big spaceships. But I was expecting more droids, maybe somewhere, or for scouting, for example, they would have all these droids like scattered around the planets, looking and scanning and stuff. But it just seemed like they did the spaceship stuff really well, and then everything else was like mundane World War One military, like drop and swarm, swarm a target. There was no tanks, or
I kind of did think about that, and the only thing I could put my my thought process on and why they might have done that is to kind of show that the human life, or the MI does the dying, fleet just does the flying type thing, that the human life is expendable. And I suppose Neil Patrick Harris actually makes a comment in the movie that they're in it for the species, boys and girls. The arachnids have more. So I feel like they're like, sure, we'll sacrifice a few thousand or a few hundred humans doing whatever, and it's probably cheaper than doing droids. But I tend to agree with you overall. But
yeah, I mean, me, as I was watching the movie, we were like, hey man, why are they even landing on this thing, right?
Why they
And
just
and all
wander it
these
all?
all these young men and women are like susceptible to getting killed. Why are they doing this? Why aren't they hanging back like the U.S. military would do today in warships? They'd hang back, 2,000 kilometers off your coast and pummel you with cruise missiles. But then, obviously, as the plot played out, they're not looking to annihilate the aliens at the first go. They want to learn more about it, which came from the whole sort of intelligence Gestapo team. That hey, we need
Yeah.
to learn more about it, and
Games
we
in
will.
theory.
Yeah, and we will sacrifice 5 million young people to capture a smart bug to do so. But even with that, I think they could have, on the battle scene, had the same amount of carnage and death, but added some more futuristic flair, like a little robot that they're little droids or little helicopters or tanks or something a bit more mechanical than literally just swarm of guys with machine guns running around like in total
Yeah.
chaos. Like that was the craziest invasion of a planet, or most unprepared invasion of a planet I've seen on film.
Mm, very
which,
much so.
which sort of ran against the whole technology that they had. But anyway, yeah.
Well, they might have spent all their money on the Starfleet and forgotten about the military, the
Yeah, the
mobile
army guys.
infantry.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. They're expendable.
Just run forward like in World War One. So yeah.
So I suppose, yeah, I tend to agree with that. I suppose the future concepts, as I said, I alluded to in the beginning of the cast, we're kind of looking at what they thought the internet would be like in the 23rd century. I
Yeah.
kind of liked how, while they kind of got the concept a bit weird of, you could just, would you like to know more and concepts and stuff like that. And I suppose where what I did like is with they kind of did or did not like with the robotics and stuff. I would have thought by the 23rd century they would have been like maybe it wouldn't cost so much. So for example, and I go back to that example of Radchek, while he's a teacher, he doesn't have the robotic arm. He's just got his stump. But when he gets into the military, they almost give him the cash, or they give him one
Yes.
to
That is
serve.
interesting, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
almost like if you're a civilian, is it? Not a
yeah,
citizen. If
yeah,
you're a civilian, you're not entitled to automated arms and legs. But if you fight for the cause, here, have an arm, have a leg.
yeah. The other side of the future state that I kind of liked is that humans have obviously colonized other planets, and there is a part where the main character Johnny Rico, he's obviously signing up to go to war, and his parents are pissed about it. And the father's like, "Oh, you want to go to war, do you?" And he goes, and then they have a fight. The mother calms everyone down, and then he says, "Well, how about instead we send you on a holiday to the outer rims, Zegama Beach?" Like he like so there's
Zigama
obvious,
Beach.
yeah, Zegama Beach. They they've given a kind of thing where, yeah, you can stay on Earth, but there's obviously resorts and whatever else on all these other planets.
Yeah.
That does allude to that humans are kind of like intelligent enough, or they've kind of got to that stage with their, I suppose, technical aspect to be able to go not only live on other planets, but
Yeah.
just set up like holiday time and holiday funds, buy a timeshare on a different planet,
Yeah.
like that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool, but that was just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
So, Mozsta, favorite character? Who was your favorite?
The wingman.
The wingman, Ace. Is
Ace.
that Ace?
Ace, yeah. I just think he's the ultimate wingman. He's
Yeah.
sensitive. He's like, if you're sad one day, he'll be sensitive enough to be sad with you. He won't be one of those guys that's like, come on, mate, toughen up, blah, blah, blah. So when Johnny Rico, when was he sad? He was looking at the photo
Oh,
His
when
girlfriend broke
Carmen,
up with him
yeah,
or
broke up
something.
with him. Yeah,
Yeah, and Ace was really like feeling it with him, you know.
yeah.
It
He's
was like
like,
gonna hug him, give him a
you
man
still
hug.
got me to kick around, like
Yeah, but
yeah.
then at the same time, he'll be a type of guy that you can go like night clubbing with, and he'll take like bucket bongs with you, and and just go off the Richter scale, going totally nuts with you. So Ace, I was just marveling at Ace going, and everyone could do with a wingman like Ace. So he
Mm,
was my favorite, man.
that's awesome. Um, I got I got two. My all-time favorite is Radchek, who is the teacher. I've mentioned him a couple of times. So, to begin with, he's actually trying to teach the students all about, I suppose, ethics, but you can tell at his core, and I'm only saying this within the movie, that he is an army man through and through, but he's still trying to teach the kids to think for themselves. So I kind of liked the way he was portrayed in the movie, and then also he's just got some of the best lines ever. So I brought one up before, like everybody fights, nobody quits. If you don't fight, I'll kill you myself. Like that type of stuff. He
Yeah.
also helps Johnny Rico get laid. When
That's
like
right. Yes.
so throughout the whole movie,
And boy,
Johnny
did Johnny need help.
basically Johnny's been like just fobbing off Dizzy, who is like, she's like almost like just puppy dog in love with him. And like the whole movie is just trying to get in his pants the whole time. And then he's like, no, no, I don't do, she asks him to dance after they've had a big, a big issue. And they're like, you know, not Rico, sorry. Radchik comes out and he's like, I expect the best, but I give the best. And he like gives them all a keg, and it just so happens that there's a violin in this thing, and they all have a bit of a song and dance. And your wingman Ace just knows the violin as well,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
like starts like getting
Multi-talented.
everyone in it. But then like Dizzy comes up to Johnny Rico and says, "Hey, let's have a dance." He's like, "Oh no, I don't do that anymore." And then Radchek comes up to Rico and goes, "Rico, you once asked me for some advice. You want some?" He's like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Never pass up a good thing." Within like 30 seconds, he's over. He's got Dizzy in the sack, and they're trying to get on with it. Like it's
Yeah.
hilarious. Like
Yeah.
is there? And then there's also another bit where they're walking through. They're like mopping up after Star Destroyers have like been bombing the planet, and they're doing mop up. And then you see a new bug being introduced by the flying alien insectoids, which basically picks up a dude like a scout and then goes and starts like ripping him to pieces.
Yeah.
And then instead of like Radchek just immediately, give me a gun, soldier, and he takes the gun, and instead of killing the bug, he just without a second thought kills the dude, right? And he's like, I'd expect any one of you to do that for me.
Yeah.
And then he lives up to his word, and when it's his time to die, as you said, all the main characters, or a lot of the main characters, just get totally bamboozled in a crazy way. He gets his legs ripped off by
Yes.
chewed up,
Yeah.
and then he's like, Rico, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And then he gets him to kill him. Like it's I feel like he's got a lot of kahushness, and like
Yeah.
he's a real guy that stands for what he believes in. So he was my favorite. My second, I suppose close second, is the drill sergeant Zim, for a couple of reasons. He's also got one of the best lines in the movie. So your man Ace is like they're all practicing knife fighting, and like he's like, everyone hold, and like Ace is shit at it, and he's like, sir, why would we want to like do a knife fight? What can't you just shoot a nuke down a bug hole, a lot of dead bugs? And he's like, put your hand against the wall, and then he chucks the knife style and then like stabs his hand into the wall, and then he walks up to him, and like Ace is like, my hand is like going like that's, and he's like, the enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand. And that for me is probably one of the best lines in the movie.
Yeah.
And just hands down. And then also he's like at the beginning as a drill sergeant, if you watch army movies throughout, like I suppose the history of movies being made, you've got your crazy drill sergeants like in Full Metal Jacket, and all these other ones where they're just total badasses, and they always have to assert their authority in a certain different way. And he does it by like, who thinks they can take me on, you know?
Mm.
And of course, the big oaf American dude who ends up getting shot in the head by Rico or by one of Rico's team. He tries to take him on, breaks his arm in like 30 seconds, not even that. And I just think that's a nice like asset of authority in that whole situation.
Yep.
But then he's also got a bit of a kind heart. Like when he's obviously when Rico shows incompetence and has to get 10 lashes in public square, he gives Rico like a bone or something, or like a
Wood.
leather tutor.
Yeah.
Wood to, and he goes, bite down on this, son. Like it helps. I know. So it's like he kind of empathizes with him. And then he's also like the man. He's like trying to ask his boss when we're going to war. He goes, I want to see combat. And then he's like, the only way you're going to see combat, Sergeant, is if you bust yourself down to private. And then who ends up like getting the brain bug at the end? A private named Zim.
That's
like,
right.
This is so he like again. He's like he shows his commitment to the cause and then busts it down. So yeah, those are my two. But yeah, I just think very well done. And again, both have cheesy, awesome lines that just help make the movie for me.
Yeah, you went for the two strong role models almost.
Yeah, I suppose
they're the men they're the two men that, you know, when this swarm of bugs is coming over the hill, they're the two type of men that keep the troops steady, you know.
Yeah, well, they inspire.
Or else,
you know what I mean?
they inspire you to hold your ground and get your legs chopped off, you know. Interesting.
Yeah. So, talking about the characters, who do you think the unsung hero is? Obviously, you've got your Johnny Rico, who's the main character of the main star, but I don't necessarily think he's the unsung hero. But yeah.
I don't really have an unsung hero. I think actually the unsung hero would be the Dizzy.
Oh yeah.
The redheaded girl who was loyal as a dog to Johnny Rico throughout the whole film. Did end up actually sleeping with him, so she was happy for a moment. But then she got flung aside again, didn't she? Like Johnny Rico, like totally ignored her, like after they slept together in some scene, I think.
It was just before. So
was it? Right.
Yeah.
And then when she's dying as well, she's reaching out to him to say I love you or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. And nothing happens.
She's like, it's okay, Johnny. You know, like no matter throughout her whole life, she's like, don't worry that I'm dying because I got to have you.
Yeah.
Like, man, you got to have something more going for yourself than just this. But you know, at least you got a goal in your life. You know, that's the.
So I just, out of pure pity, see her as the unsung hero.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah. I suppose I don't really have an exact one either. For me, I kind of did like one of the supporting cast guys, Ibanez, who was like the dude that like he goes down with Johnny Rico into the hold to find Carmen, and he's the one that has to stay behind. And when he does, Johnny Rico's like, "Are you trying to be like a hero private?" And he's like, "No, sir. I just want to kill some bugs." And like, but I thought that he's throughout the whole movie, he's kind of like, you know, he had a few good moments, like when they're all having a chat, like when they first go into the Roughnecks, which is the unit that Radchik leads.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, you know, when your man Ace has like your your sergeant or your lieutenant sounds like a real nutbuster, and he just basically, he's like, "Lieutenant saved my life," and then everyone pipes up and it's like, "Lieutenant saves my life too." So I kind of liked that with the supporting roles of these guys, like even though he died and as Dizzy did, all these people had a big enough impact on the movie to actually like allow the rest of the people to kind of do their job, if that makes sense. But it still like create enough of a like I can't tell you how many movies I walk away from going, mate, who the fuck was that character, or why would we even, you know, look at that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just the fact that you can remember these people shows that they've made a big enough impact. Like
like Ace.
Yeah,
Like,
or even the black dude that was the priest in The Walking Dead. I forget his name, but like he's like heaps young and stuff like that. And
yes, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Uh, do you reckon they got the cast right?
I think Tom Cruise as Johnny Rico would have been better, man.
You know, it's funny you say that.
and
Tom
and
Cruise
and
does exceptional work in sci-fi movies.
Dolph Lundgren as the as the lieutenant that saves the day becomes the private.
uh,
But besides
so
that, everything else is sweet.
I feel like for the budget that they had, obviously they spent it all on special effects and all the rest of it, not the screenwriting, or the actors. I feel like you said, the typical Johnny Rico, like he's a square-jawed American, like he kind of
Yeah,
fit
Tom
the bill
Cruise.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if Tom Cruise was to do that type of movie, I'd say they would have like picked it up another level. Yeah, you're probably right on that. Or why not Bruce Willis as the
The
Ratchet,
Major.
you know?
Ratchet.
Yeah,
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 man.
Ratchet. Like,
Yeah, Die
that
Hard.
would have been cool. Like, maybe if they ever do a remake, we'll put our request forward and say we think this is where it's gonna be.
It needs all the classic 90s and 80s like action heroes in it, you know? It would have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Arnie,
So,
everyone.
so throughout the movie with the characters, I suppose we've kind of touched on it a fair bit, so don't need like a whole War and Peace on it. But do you reckon they've kind of like the imagery of of all the characters? Do you reckon they've like, I suppose, put together a good picture and an image of how it all works?
In regards to characters, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I suppose do they draw like your attention in the right ways? Like I suppose like we've talked a lot about the supporting cast. So when you're like, when I say an image, like do you think they've pretty much gone, well, like Ace, for example, he's kind of portrayed himself of the typical, wingman or, supporting best man role.
Yeah, you know what they remind me of? Like a corny comic characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the two football players fighting over the cheerleader. Johnny Rico and his nemesis, the pilot with the black hair, like the classic football jockeys. You got the cheerleading princess. You got the ultimate wingman by your side. You've got the stereotypical Sarge, who's all embodies all the ideals and stuff of the empire and whatnot. So I just kept imagining, almost as I was watching the film, boxes or whatever they're called of comics.
Yeah.
And these guys easily being transcribed into a comic, So I think that's what they want. I think it's not a serious film. It's an absolute laugh. It doesn't take itself seriously, and it'll be an awesome comic as well. And I think the way they cast these characters aesthetically reminded me of that, or kept drawing me to that. Maybe because I love comics as well. But yeah, I was sitting there thinking this scene right here, if you just took a photograph, would be a nice box out as a comic. The girls have got big eyes, just sort of subtle things like that.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, when I looked at all of the characters individually and thought, hey, like, they had, like, I feel like they made the characters what they were. So, like, again, you look at Johnny Rico, he's literally like a football player / like a good army man. He's not incredibly intelligent. They don't try and make him out to be something that he's not. Hence his, like, awesome one-liners, like big smart bug, that type of stuff. The wingman, again, same thing. They just make him support for the main actor, Johnny Rico. You got the love interest that's kind of unattainable, that's probably a bit big for her britches. Then you got the other love interest, which isn't normally done. So yeah, I thought they did everything really quite well.
Yeah,
like that. But then, like I suppose overall, like this being the type of movie that there is, do you think from a human perspective, do you think the writers put anything into politics or religion in this? So, for example, do you think there is a spiritual or godly dimension to this movie, or do you think it's outright just got nothing to do with that?
Well, I think that it touches on a few different themes, but none of them to me seem to be like spiritual God. Is there a God or is there not a God wise? But it does touch on a religion, and that religion being the state religion. So, it very much reminded me of Big Brother, of, tyrannical regimes that brainwash their people for good or for bad. Sometimes if a alien invasion is happening, who knows? Maybe you do need to brainwash people to go and fight, or we will all die. I don't know, right? So, but it touches on propaganda, I suppose, which is a form of religion. It touches on the true horrors of war versus what people think war is as well, I think. It touches on
freedom or not freedom, kind of ties into...
No, it doesn't tie into freedom for me, because where they live, they don't seem to be that free, according to the school. Like the doctrine is very not free doctrine. It's very much, are you a civilian or a citizen, blah blah blah. But obviously the sergeant.
Or if you are a citizen, you do get freedom. Like I kind of feel like or almost like an elitism, kind of type thing. Like for me, that's kind of what, and that kind of ties into the politics side of things. Like, it almost feels like you do, and I've said it kind of earlier on the podcast as well, that you've got almost a militant view, but everyone has kind of accepted that. And so I suppose
that's the religion that I'm referring to.
That's right. And I think you kind of summed it up really well in that way. And I think that is kind of, it's interesting that they went in that fashion. And again, they managed to do that really well with all the propaganda stuff, and that you show, that while they do show the horrors of war and everything, they're signing up people, they're trying to get everyone to do their part. They've got that scene where all the kids are like stepping on cockroaches, doing their part. You know what I mean? And then, but they're also like glamorizing. I don't know if that's even a word, but they're making war look beautiful and wonderful and and fun. Like they're handing out bullets to all the kids.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Like candy.
It's like it really kind of does put in that, this is who we are and everyone's on board, and if you're not on board, you're an outcast almost. I thought that was really, the way they drilled that home was really kind of, a big message in there. And despite the movie being cheesy, it does say a lot about what society is, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yep, absolutely. And what it could become, with a one world order, would become a militaristic empire. There's nothing in our history that would show otherwise at all. There is no enlightened empire that humanity's ever made, really. There's been sort of like enlightened little realms and little pockets of enlightenment, but they quickly get like devoured by massive empires next door that aren't really enlightened except on how to be militarily very strong. But also, man, I think one of the plots, for me anyway, was the grass is greener plot line in Johnny Rico's life. There's literally scenes where he's sitting amongst his men. He's got the best wingman you could ever ask for. He's got the best sergeant you could ever ask for. And then he's got this gorgeous redhead that just wants to rip his clothes off. Yet he'll be sitting there all sad because he's not with that other girl. I'm like, dude, the grass is so green where you are right now. What's wrong with you, Johnny? What's wrong with you?
He can't see what's right in front of him.
So I took that away from it as well.
Oh, good. universal problems. Do you reckon the film hit home on actually? Do you think they meant to like deal with the current universal problems, like the propaganda and all the rest of it, and all like Big Brother totalitarian state, or do you think that they just kind of like took bits and pieces from the original book and thought, you know what, this would kind of look cool in a movie?
No, I think I mean, I haven't read the book, so I can't compare the two, but I
Hmm.
think they did a really good job, even though it's in a cheesy way, of putting a mirror up to humanity. I, I, I think that if we are left to our own devices and one group does take over the planet, we will look quite similar to what they portray in this film. I really believe that.
So a moral decline, if anything, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't even say a moral decline. I just think that we're morally declined, like
Already.
already. Like we're not more. It's just we're not under one world order at the moment, right? Like there's still several nations and powers. But imagine, imagine there is one force on this planet. I would quickly guess that it would become a militaristic type institution where if you don't salute that flag, you will be,
Yeah.
cast as an
Well,
outsider. So I actually think it's like a mirror to our face of
well,
what
it's
what
quite.
would happen if there is one force on the planet. And then on Johnny Rico's side, again, I just think humans think the grass is always greener. Like we could have the best lives, most stable lives. Our bellies are full. We might have children. We might be able to play games. Yet we're still not happy sometimes where we are. So I think they did a very good job in, you know, sort of uh, putting a mirror to the face of humanity in a very cheesy way. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
agreed. And look, I suppose it is interesting because when you look at the movie versus the book, and obviously, I've just kind of reconfirmed the book was written in the 50s, so that's obviously after World War II's just ended. But
Yep.
there's obviously that view of the, totalitarian state and how everything was going. But yeah, I feel that I think they did try and put a lot of that in there, and whether they took it from the book or not, I feel like they just did it and was very well received, or they did it very well, essentially. But yeah, so I suppose upon reflection of the movie and your thoughts, do you reckon you'd give the movie a second watch?
Well, I did.
Oh, you did, I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
did.
did. Um, I think would I watch it a third time? I think I would, man. I think I would. Um, yes, definitely. I think it's a fun, cheesy movie that comes off like a B grade movie, but then when you look deeper at the film, you're trying to identify a prop that looks really crap or a bit of CGI that looks really rubbish. And to be honest, it looks like
It
a
looks.
B grade movie. It feels like a
Yeah.
B grade movie, but when you try to actually call it out as a B grade movie, you're like, no, actually, for its time, that's actually not bad special effects, and that's not bad special effects, and that's not bad
Mm.
special effects. So you're like, actually, this is it a B grade movie? Oh, I don't know. It doesn't. It looks like one, but doesn't feel like one, I suppose. And then the
Mm.
themes, I think, are classic sci-fi themes. Um, so yeah, man, I think I would definitely watch it a third time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, 100%. I've obviously seen it a couple of times, but I feel like um, you're watching it a second time, you'd be able to, I suppose, because you already know what's coming, is also, it's a good one to watch with the boys or a group of people that just want to have a laugh and don't have to concentrate. Like I could tell you after a long week of work, or like, I mean, whatever it is, the last thing sometimes you want to do is watch a very serious movie. This is one that you could just have on in the background. Everyone can have a chat, have a laugh about, and also like, obviously, like have, because it is a cheesy movie, have a good like laugh at the one-liners, I suppose, and then also like it has become that kind of cult classic. So you do have your, I suppose, more hardcore fans that would look into it a lot more. But like I suppose overall, 100%, I would definitely say definitely a second or even a third watch, if for nothing else, just for a bit of fun. Would you recommend the movie?
Only to a certain type of person, Borders.
Mm.
Yeah. I would have to
So,
suss out sci-fi, geek, like myself, leaning. Um, not a serious person, I suppose. Yeah, I would kind of suss them out, and then I'd have no hesitation in recommending it, because if it's the right crowd, it's a cult classic movie in my books. So I
yeah.
think it's a movie you can pull out in 30 years time and still watch it and have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. I think I would recommend it as well. Obviously, anyone that didn't like sci-fi, I wouldn't even bother. But even if you had a loose affiliation, and probably more, I would probably, if the people did not like gore, I would probably say don't watch it, because there is a hell of a lot of gore. As you said, they've picked a lot of creative ways to kill people off in this movie.
Certainly have.
Like, there's one scene in particular where the dude's jumping off one of the turrets, and then the dude just comes in with his claws and just, and he's like hanging off it and like everything, and it was hilarious. But
Horrible scenes.
yeah, so for if there was a cheese meter that was or did exist, from on a scale of 1 to 10 cheesiness, where would this cheese meter be? Or where would this
1
movie
to
sit
10
on the cheese?
cheesiness, right? Can you give an example of a 10 cheesy?
Or
Or a 1 cheesy? Like, just so I know how this works. Well, I think it's cheesy, so it's definitely past 5. It's definitely past 6. It could have been even
I would
more
almost, I would almost
cheesy.
use this
Like
as
7
the,
or an
yeah, I
8.
would almost use this as the latter, as the on the 10 side, if I was to give an example.
Oh, right,
cheesy
okay.
movies.
So this is a 10. Yeah.
Well, for me, a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
Because I think is that they didn't try and hide the fact that it was meant to be cheesy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
almost,
Monty
like,
Python to me is the 10s.
Yeah, okay, so that is like kind of British cheesy comedy, but
Mm.
a lot of people, British comedy is another, you could get a lot of Americans that just won't like British comedy,
Yeah.
or a lot of people in general. So
Yeah.
no, I get what you mean. Well, if you're using Monty Python as a 10, I would probably put this around the 8 or 9 mark.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
There are moments in it which is semi-serious.
Mm.
Semi, mind you.
Semi-serious.
So
Yeah.
that it gives you a break from... It's not just an onslaught of Swiss cheese, if you like, but... but yeah.
No, that's
So, yeah.
awesome. And I suppose, and just overall out of 10, if you had to give this, a certain amount of arachnids out of 10 arachnids, how many arachnids would you give?
I'd probably give it a solid 7.
Very nice. I only, because I personally love the movie, would give it 7.8 to 8. Only because
7.8 to 8, yep. Just say 8, man.
yeah. So yeah, I like thoroughly enjoyed it, and I suppose again, because it is again with this after the fact podcast that I will be doing, I will really only be doing movies that I think are worthy of a good discussion and fleshing it out. So for me, I'm going to say yes, definitely, and for you, an 8.
7.87372.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Showman J at
Showman
J is how you can get in touch with
at Showman J.
With Fortis. If you have any future requests or favorite movies that Fortis might want to also do, just hit him up on Twitter at Showman J.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was your first podcast.
How did I do?